It's called science.
On March 31st, 2018, an account, Nacreous Moon, comments on a video by YouTuber Chantal, Foodie Beauty. Chantal replies to the comment, clearly indicating she knows who is behind the account. Later that night, Nacreous Moon signs up for an account with gossip site Kiwi Farms, which will set off a week-long feud. The poster is a former friend of Chantal, named Kathy, whose claims about Chantal's pre-YouTube life quickly enter the lore. This video is not an attempt to discredit Kathy's claims, many of which have been affirmed by Chantal. Nor is this an attempt to rehabilitate Chantal's image. Rather, this video explores 3 potential reasons Kathy confronted Chantal publicly. 1. That Kathy was offended by Chantal's use of ableist language. 2. That Kathy has a history of mental illness, characterized by lashing out at friends. 3. That Kathy and Chantal have been nursing grievances since high school, with the feud simply being its latest, perhaps final flare-up. I'll also be sharing slides from my recent trip to Canada. With all that in mind, let's take an overview of the feud. On March 30th, Chantal uploads 2 videos in which she discusses her most recent attempts at dieting, along with continued issues with her ovaries.
So I have 2 large cysts, and they're 16 centimeters each. And I'm supposed to have surgery, but I wanted to hold off on the surgery to see if anything I could do naturally. And I haven't really been being good. I've been beaten.
These 2 issues are tied together, as Chantal has continued to delay surgical intervention in hopes of curing her cysts through dietary changes. A diagram of Chantal's infamous diet cycle is available in the OP for her thread on Kiwi Farms, and we see a variant in the weeks leading up to the feud with Kathy. During that time, Chantal attempts a plant-based, vegan lifestyle, which is her default diet during this period. Frustrated with her self-imposed limits, Chantal will give way to old indulgences, which is consistent with Step 3. On March 27th, she uploads a fried chicken-themed video. On the 28th, she celebrates her birthday with gourmet donuts.
Shh. I said shh. What are you shishing for?
And on the 29th, she keeps the party going with McDonald's, along with her preemptive rejection of viewer criticism, which is also typical of Step 3.
Let's get something out of the way before I start pigging out. I'm on a bit of a junk food bender, as you can see.
In her March 30th video, I'm so messed up, Chantal reaches Step 4, which includes a plea for understanding from her audience.
Because the encouragement does help, like reading people cheering me on and a lot of suggestions and things like that. Like I do look forward to your support as well. So, and I don't really have any other support system.
Chantal's behavior is familiar to cycle observers, such as her comparison of her disordered eating to drug addiction.
Withdrawing from fatty, salty, sweet food, you get like literal withdrawals. Like I vomit, I get diarrhea, I get panic attacks.
She will not, however, achieve her finest bit of verbiage till the end of the following month.
My addiction staring me in the face every single day. If you were a heroin addict and you're driving down the street and there's like people on the corner with succulent heroin right in your face for cheap, $1.99, upsize for just 50 cents. Do you think they would be as strong? No.
The following day, on March 31st, Kathy leaves the aforementioned comment, to which Chantal replies later that afternoon. That evening, Chantal deletes the March 30th videos. She then uploads a video in which she addresses Kathy's comments. Shortly after midnight, her time, Kathy creates a Kiwi Farms account and begins posting in Chantal's thread. Kathy is followed by another new account, which was proposed as Chantal's sock account, though moderators subsequently disconfirmed this. Chantal posts an additional reply to Kathy on her YouTube channel. The evening of April 1st, during a since-deleted live stream, Chantal attempts to defuse the situation, after being accused of attempting to blackmail Kathy into silence by suggesting she'd follow Kathy's lead in revealing personal information, as Kathy has been doing to her in the thread. In response, Kathy continues to post personal information about Chantal, along with information about her partner and her family. On April 3rd, Chantal issues an apology to Kathy in her vlog, Day 1 Weight Loss Journey.
I want to apologize to my friend I've been talking about in this drama lately. There's a lot of drama going on between us, and I don't like that at all. So I apologize for mean things I've said to you in return. I was very hurt, and hurt people. I was very hurt that I've known you and been your friend for 20 years. And instead of coming to me privately and saying, you know, I was offended by these things that you've said, you go and join forces with my trolls and become my biggest troll.
Kathy then shares an email from Chantal, which contrasts sharply with her apology. On April 4th, Chantal uploads a video, I take back my apology, in which she does just that. And Kathy shares a second email from Chantal. Kathy will continue sharing intimate information about Chantal, Chantal's family and partner, and even discuss their circle of friends. On April 12th, Kathy makes her last post on Kiwi Farms. On May 5th, Chantal uploads explaining my side, which includes a final apology to Kathy. Now that we have an overview of the feud, let's consider potential motivations for Kathy's actions. Before that, however, while in Canada, I wanted to experience something of the vegetarian lifestyle. The Green Door on Main Street in Ottawa definitely delivered. Given that Kathy's first comment to Chantal under the Nacreous Moon account concerns Chantal's continued failure to lose weight, it's tempting to assume Kathy is simply frustrated with Chantal's diet cycle, and like many an A-logger, finds a home in Chantal's thread on Kiwi Farms. During her time in the thread, Kathy never explains her motivation for confronting Chantal publicly. To be fair, no one else inquires. Of course, one might wonder how Kathy even knew about Chantal's thread. By March 2018, when Kathy confronts Chantal, Chantal has been consistently putting out YouTube content for a little over a year. While it may be difficult to imagine now, Chantal has not yet become a topic for YouTube reactors, with discussion of her confined to gossip sites like Kiwi Farms, You Talk Trash, and to clip channels. Frail middle-aged lesbian Zachary Michael is the earliest reactor I'm aware of, taking on Chantal in April, as the feud with Kathy is sputtering out. Nursing student Michael B. Petty, seen here with his hose on the set of his 1998 hit single Still Not a Player, will begin reacting to Chantal that summer. So for Chantal discussion, one will either have to go to her comments section and likely get blocked, or somehow find their way to Kiwi Farms. By fall 2017, a little more than 5 months before the feud, Chantal has her own thread, which she is made aware of when someone posts the link to it in her YouTube comments. At the end of November, some of Chantal's background information, some of which is even accurate, is uploaded to the site. A thread poster, Russian Blonde, then messages Chantal on YouTube to alert her to this fact. Eventually, this sort of behavior will earn admonishment from the thread's moderator, and another user will be publicly shamed for directly engaging with Chantal, including threatening her with a fail dox and attempting to shame her with pictures of the user's own, allegedly thinner, body. Another user hosts a Chantal-themed clip channel, which she acknowledges in her December 1st video, Vlogmas Day 1.
If I don't wear deodorant or I sweat a lot for some reason, it smells like Fritos or like crackers. Yeah, I know. You're probably thinking, you know what? Kiwi Farms, add that to your hate compilation about me.
So Chantal is aware of her Kiwi Farms thread, which means her viewers are potentially aware of it as well, which presumably includes Kathy. I say this because the March 30th video is not the first time Kathy leaves a message in Chantal's comments. On January 9th, 2018, nearly 3 months before the feud, Chantal uploads a video in which she discusses a friend who is upset with her for having used an ableist slur. While an archive of the video is available, Chantal edited it almost immediately after the initial upload to remove the portion criticizing her friend. As it turns out, the friend is Kathy, who then leaves comments about Chantal on the page for the Kiwi Farmers clip channel, using the screen name Halo Cat, which will be the first of many handles. In the comments, Kathy claims that Chantal knows better than to use certain ableist slurs, as Kathy has 2 autistic children. While I cannot say with any certainty what video Kathy is referring to, there is a video around this time in which Chantal takes shots at YouTuber Unfit, which seems to fit the bill.
Even eating a bucket of fried chicken and 2 large pizzas is being more productive than you are, because you're just spreading a bunch of hate and ignorance, you know. And you're not just that, but it's a social concern, because you're threatening the human gene pool, because with your fucktardness.
During her time on Kiwi Farms, Kathy does not mention that she's already been engaging with Chantal on YouTube, nor does she mention being allegedly angry with Chantal over ableist language. Rather, Chantal addresses this multiple times. We saw Chantal offer Kathy an initial apology in her April 3rd video. In a purported email from that same day, however, Chantal claims that Kathy's grounds for offense are dubious, given that Chantal has previously used the word around Kathy, and Kathy had no objection. Chantal repeats this claim in her May 5th video, End of Drama.
She's seen some things I've said online out of anger a year ago, again, defending myself against a troll. And what does she do? She jumps on the bandwagon instead of messaging me directly and saying, hey, I'm offended by what you said, which, why? I mean, I've said things to her in private chats many times.
Again, it's puzzling that this is the reason Kathy is so angry with Chantal, yet during her time on Kiwi Farms, she never mentions this. Not even in response to Chantal's apologies, which explicitly cite ableist language as the problem. While there, Kathy will soak up sympathy for Chantal having allegedly doxed her, by referring to her by name. This is cited, and continues to be cited, as evidence that Chantal was attempting to blackmail Kathy into silence. What then are we to make of Kathy's opening salvo in the feud, in which she literally refers to Chantal by her full legal name? While Chantal's information may have been available, Chantal had not yet presented it herself. So if Kathy's information ended up becoming public, and some of it did, I'm not terribly sympathetic. Nor am I convinced ableist language is the root cause of the feud. So let's consider another potential motivation. Before that, however, I must acknowledge the sheer volume of milk produced by the feud. This in turn reminds me of my wonderful experience at St. Albert's Dairy. The portions are incredible. I had more than enough left over to bring home to my live-in immigrant. Let's return to Chantal's reply to Kathy's comment on the March 30th video, which kicked off the feud publicly. For now, I'd like to focus on Chantal's claim that Kathy is mentally ill and that Kathy has a habit of, quote, flipping out. As I mentioned, the following day, March 31st, Chantal deletes the videos that contain their exchange. She then uploads a Dominos-themed video in which she describes a pattern of abusive behavior employed by Kathy.
I have this former friend who decided to turn against me. She does this periodically. She shuts everyone out in her life. She goes nuts and stalks. Whenever she's angry at someone, she stalks them, cyber stalks them.
Chantal elaborates on this in the email sent to Kathy on April 1st, claiming that Kathy creates sock accounts to continue engaging with her. Thus far, we have seen the Halo Cat account from the January messages to the clip channel. And we have, of course, seen the Nacreous Moon account. And on April 5th, 4 days after the exchange between Chantal and Nacreous Moon, we find Kathy again squabbling with Chantal under yet another handle. This time, in the comments section of the Kiwi Farms clip channel. I'll also propose that Kathy resurfaces in August 2021 in the chat of Chantal Reactor French Fried Gorl, this time as Butterscotch Barbie. A topic we'll return to. We do, however, only have Chantal's claim that Kathy enjoys bothering people under a variety of screen names. Given Chantal's history as a somewhat unreliable narrator, it would be helpful were there others who've made the same claim. In June 2021, roughly 2 months before Butterscotch Barbie appears, another Chantal bestie, Shannon, joins Chantal's chat, first as a member, then as a moderator. This is, of course, the same Shannon Butterscotch is referring to in the August chat messages. Shannon claims in Chantal's chat that Kathy has messaged her, warning her that posters in Chantal's Kiwi Farms thread are looking into her. Interestingly, in Facebook messages with mutual friends, Shannon makes the same sorts of accusations against Kathy that Chantal did 3 years prior. In particular, we see here Shannon claiming that Kathy is still employing sock accounts to connect with former classmates and best friends. As to why she can't just message someone from her personal account, during the initial feud, Kathy claimed for some reason to have deleted it, which concerns her as Chantal's mother may not acknowledge her messages to her. In the Facebook thread with Shannon, another friend, Steph, to whom we shall return, implies that Kathy has a lengthy history of annoyance via sock account, which also affirms Chantal's claim. Keep in mind that Shannon and Steph had no expectation that Chantal nor anyone else would read their comments. To be fair, Kathy does not deny having mental health issues, as evidenced by her Kiwi Farms screen name. And given the venom with which Chantal discusses it, it's easy to lay one's sympathy entirely with Kathy, which is, of course, what has happened. This approach, however, fails to acknowledge Kathy as agitator, possibly manipulator, and her behavior is therefore worth scrutinizing. First, Kathy will be admonished several times for being disruptive in Chantal's thread. Following the exchange with the alleged Chantal sock account, Kathy asserts she will, quote, step back and just watch. A moderator then warns Kathy of the danger of stealing focus. Of course, Kathy does not step back and continues to shift the thread's focus from Chantal to herself, admittedly with the support of some thread posters. Kathy is again admonished by the moderator, and the irrelevant posts are deleted. Unfortunately, for those who don't carefully read the thread, this gives the impression that Kathy is a relatively neutral party. Second, there is the issue of the personal information Kathy is sharing. While much of it is about Chantal, Kathy has no qualms sharing intimate information about people connected to Chantal. For instance, she sees nothing inappropriate about sharing presumably private medical information about Chantal's sister. Nor does she seem bothered making allegations about Chantal's partner's immigration status, as well as insinuate she may have him deported. For whatever reason, though, she gets upset when Chantal retaliates by threatening to call CPS on her. Kathy's volunteering of personal information can be tracked against questions and discussion in the thread. Here we see her responding to questions asked of another Canadian poster the previous September. And while Kathy's claims, some of which have since been affirmed by Chantal, entered the lore without question, only a single poster points out that Kathy provides no evidence for anything she says. This is important, as my third point is that Kathy is a manipulative person, at least in her behavior in the thread. For instance, while Kathy happily shares emails from Chantal, which certainly paint Chantal in an unflattering light, and rightfully so, Kathy never shows messages she sent to Chantal. Consequently, one might infer that the email exchange is one-sided, with Kathy as victim of Chantal's aggression, which is certainly how this has since been portrayed. In addition, Kathy complains that Chantal's initial apology is insincere, as it's given the same day Chantal sends her the first email. Of course, it's possible between the apology and the email, Chantal may have discovered Kathy on another platform discussing things like reporting her partner for immigration fraud. 2 days after the initial apology and the first email, on April 3rd, Chantal uploads "I Take My Apology Back," in which shares messages purportedly from Kathy. While focus on this video has been on Chantal's threats to call CPS on Kathy, the messages hardly do Kathy any favors, showing her to be every bit as vulgar and rabid as Chantal, as well as support the statements made by their mutual friends 3 years later on Facebook about Kathy's pattern of behavior. As a second example of manipulation, or perhaps poor listening and reading comprehension, Kathy claims to have contacted Chantal's mother in the hopes of staging an intervention. This post follows Chantal's initial apology video, which Kathy claims was motivated by her having contacted Chantal's mother. Although the following day, she's not clear whether Chantal's mother received the messages, as Kathy was sending them via sock account. Shortly after patting herself on the back for contacting Chantal's mother to arrange an intervention, Kathy claims that Chantal is stalking her by having contacted her father. I assume Kathy didn't watch Chantal's initial apology video, as I'm not sure Chantal's purported behavior meets the legal threshold for stalking.
I also, anytime that you've dropped off the face of the earth a few times and didn't leave me a phone number or address, I always tried to find you because I missed you and I wanted to know how you were doing. So I would even go as far as trying to find your dad to get your information, and I remember I did that once.
Still, I do not pretend to be an expert in Canadian law, and therefore leave it to the viewer to decide who is stalking whom, assuming either is. Interestingly, Kathy ceases posting in Chantal's thread as the conversation moves from her and Chantal's feud to Chantal's feud with reactor Zachary Michael. In other words, when the attention dries up. Though as we've seen, Kathy is still keeping tabs on Chantal and Chantal's Kiwi Farms thread 3 years later. As well as the possibility Kathy lurks in reactor chats, sharing information about Chantal's friends. Let's return to the nacreous moon comment and consider one last potential motivation. Before that, however, I'd like to acknowledge the importance of caring for one's mental health, as well as the importance of self-care. While in Chantal's hometown of Cornwall, Ontario, I learned a great deal during my visit to a local mental health care facility. It's also possible I may have stood out as a tourist. Following my visit, I treated myself at a local pizzeria. Unfortunately, I'm one of those who tends to carry their weight in their face. While Kathy and Chantal claim to have been best friends for 20 years, it's not clear whether they ever liked one another, given their willingness to weaponize old grievances. In the initial nacreous moon comment, Kathy freely admits to having starved herself, so that she would not look like Chantal or their mutual friend Steph, cited earlier in the Facebook messages. Chantal addresses this comment in her Dominos video, uploaded the following day.
I did nothing to this person. And they leave nasty comments. And one of the comments was like, I starved myself trying not to look like you and another one of my friends who was overweight when we were growing up.
While Chantal has her thoughts on Kathy's comment, I personally wonder why Kathy needed to starve herself. I assume there's some wiggle room between one end of disordered eating and the other. The day after Chantal's video, on April 4th, Kathy again comes for Steph, referring to her as the, quote, awkward obese friend whose crush she stole, as Kathy was a slut. Given the way she describes herself, I doubt this courtship involved scented handkerchiefs, Virginia reels, or self-esteem. Interestingly, in her first post on Kiwi Farms, Kathy accuses Chantal of having routinely ended up under her friends' boyfriends. Whatever was going on, there seemed to be a lot of it going around. As we saw in her 2021 Facebook exchange with Shannon, awkward obese friend Steph is understandably not a huge fan of Kathy. She does, however, speak glowingly of Kathy's sister. On a much darker note, in the initial Nacreous Moon post, Kathy accuses Chantal of having mocked her in high school for having been the victim of a consent accident. In her reply, Chantal claims she never said that. And she will repeat that claim, first in her initial apology on April 3rd.
Yeah, as for the other thing you were saying that I was, the traumatic events in your life, I would never make light of that and make fun of you for that. And that hurt me that you thought that too. I don't know where that came from.
Chantal will then repeat that claim in the email sent to Kathy on that same day. In the last section, I mentioned an account, Butterscotch Barbie, which showed up in Reactor French Fried Gorl's chat when Chantal and Kathy's friend Shannon joined Chantal's channel as a moderator. I had proposed that Butterscotch Barbie might be Kathy, still keeping tabs on Chantal 3 years after their feud. It's therefore interesting that this account accuses Shannon of the same things Kathy accused Chantal of. Victim blaming, victim shaming. Regardless, given Kathy's lived experience, one ought not see Kathy make the same sorts of thoughtless comments about Chantal. As I've suggested, Kathy's seemingly random contributions to the lore make sense if she is responding to posts as she works her way through Chantal's Kiwi Farms thread. On April 1st, she replies to a post from page 3. Bear in mind that Chantal's thread was around 90 pages when Kathy joined. The poster characterized several of Chantal's stories of sexual encounters as assault, given that Chantal tends to describe herself as intoxicated at the time. Kathy claims that despite having known Chantal for 20 years, Chantal has never mentioned an assault. She then characterizes their behavior during this time as that of, quote, slutty teens. So, given that Chantal never mentioned an assault, and that they were sluts, Chantal was never assaulted. Furthermore, if Chantal claims to have been assaulted, she's passing off a friend's experience as her own. And why would a victim of assault share stories of, quote, so many passionate encounters? Which is an interesting perspective coming from a victim of assault who was also a self-described teenage slut. As before, Kathy seems to have poor comprehension. First, the videos being described are not videos in which Chantal claims to have been the victim of assault, which was the OP's point. While Chantal's encounter may fit the criteria, Chantal does not think of it in those terms. Nor does Kathy. Second, Chantal's not telling Kathy that she has been assaulted does not indicate whether or not an assault took place. Given their behavior toward one another, I'm amazed this group ever shared anything. As an example, consider Claude, a middle-aged man who lived in an apartment over Shannon when the three were in high school. Regardless of age of consent, there is a predatory aspect in Chantal's relationship with Claude. While Chantal has acknowledged a certain ickiness, she has characterized the relationship as operating on a relatively even plane. There is, of course, a tendency to doubt Chantal's stories, though the relationship was subsequently confirmed by Shannon and by yet another Chantal friend, who joined the Kiwi Farms thread in July 2021, about a month after Shannon became a moderator in Chantal's chat. Interestingly, neither Chantal nor Shannon nor this latest arrival, Gone Rogue, seem willing to acknowledge the relationship as inherently exploitative. And despite its salience in the Chantal lore, and presumably Chantal's adolescence, Kathy doesn't reference it at all. Following her falling out with Chantal in August 2021, Shannon follows Kathy in sharing information about Chantal, in this case with Reactor French Fried Gorl. Unfortunately, Shannon shares her progressive viewpoints on adolescent vulnerability.
Well, she seduced him too.
Oh,
She's the one that showed up at his door. And
allegedly
he was totally
conspiracy
wrong
theory.
for even, because he was like
Of course.
40 years old, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not like she was taken advantage of, not at all. Like, she was the one that went there.
And Chantal has used the sorts of language and justification employed by exploiters, such as early pubescence.
And what the hell's with carnies? Like, not all of them are sleazy, but the ones in my hometown were. Like, hey. The ones in my hometown, I remember one. God. I don't know what it was, but I was 14. And for a 14-year-old, I was very precocious. Is that how you say it?
3 months after her feud with Kathy, Chantal uploads a video in which she describes an incident at a party from when she was in high school. Note that nearly 20 years later, Chantal still seems conflicted on how to characterize the encounter.
There was one party and we were all in her boyfriend's room drinking or whatever. And we found like some 40-year-old guy to buy us booze. I don't know. It was always the same thing. And so there was a spare room with like just a dirty old nasty couch. I don't even think the light worked in there. And I was just really inebriated. Everything was woozy and the room was smoky. And they were playing really loud music. And, you know, everyone was just really loud and annoying and obnoxious. And I just wanted to get away. So I just ducked out, you know, without saying anything. I slipped out into this spare room, shut the door, laid on the couch. And I just like kind of blacked out. I was passing out, you know? So I heard the door open and one of the guys, he had a pregnant girlfriend. His girlfriend was one of the most popular girls in the school and she was pregnant with this kid. And he came in and I felt him yanking off my pants. And I kind of just laid there and just let him do whatever. I was just too drunk and too, I guess just, you know, I guess it's just so messed up. I was just so happy that someone was like somehow paying attention to me, you know. I didn't want to do it, but I let him do it because I felt like some way, like not proud, but like, I don't know, that he was giving me attention and he was popular, you know?
So with those sorts of conflicted feelings, it wouldn't surprise me if Chantal never shared the experience with her circle of friends, or shared it after reframing it as wholly consensual and desired. Alternatively, every little girl dreams of starring in her own V.C. Andrews series, whether as cautionary tale, survivor, or as your garden variety teenage slut. The question of why Kathy took her particular path continues to haunt me, though I tried to not let it distract me during my tour of Chantal's apartment in Gatineau. Then again, how can one be unhappy with such an enviable chapeau? I do not contend that any of the motivations I've presented account for Kathy's sudden appearance in the Chantal lore. Nor do I contend there is any single explanation that accounts for her appearance. Of the 3 overtly proposed solutions, I find the ableist language argument the least convincing. That is, I do not imagine a scenario in which Chantal applied a filter to herself, however much she may or may not have loved Kathy's apparently addled children. I find the idea that Kathy had been holding on to grudges for 20 years convincing, as she, Chantal, and Shannon seem to have that in common. And of course, there is the strong possibility that Kathy really is nuts. Wouldn't be the first. Still, I'll suggest one last, intriguing alternative. After Kathy joins the Kiwi Farms thread, a poster suggests Kathy's grievance may follow from having been featured in a previous Chantal video, an August 2017 mukbang featuring McDonald's.
I had a friend in grade 1. It was kind of sad. She was sexually abused. I found out. And it was really sad. Someone came to talk to us about it in class. And anyway, I still have my Coke from McDonald's.
While a tempting theory, it simply doesn't align with the facts, as Chantal and Kathy met when Chantal was 12 and Kathy 13. Still, it's tempting that the real reason Kathy is so upset with Chantal is for having been incorporated into an unflattering story time. Kathy has claimed that, as of 2018, that she has not lived in the same area as Chantal for over 10 years. This would mean Kathy moved away while Chantal was still living with her previous partner James. And Kathy's most detailed claims focus on Chantal's relationship with her family, friends from high school, and her fraught relationship with James. I have considered that, given the time frame as well as Kathy's freewheelin' cooter, she may have been the, quote, skanky friend who lived in the same apartment building as Chantal and entangled herself with one of the men Chantal was cheating on James with.
One day, I was partying with my friend, who's kind of a skank. I'm not really friends with her anymore. I had a date. This guy was a jerk anyway, so it turned out good for me. I brought him over. He was a pain in the ass. Some guy from Nigeria. Actually, it was just the three of us that night. We were partying at her place. She lived in the basement in the same building. I was really, really intoxicated, so I went outside to get some air and have a cigarette. I later found out that while I was outside for like 2 minutes, she like fucked him. Like in those 2 minutes. Like you can't keep your legs closed for 2 minutes? Really?
We will of course never know. As I've stated, this video does not explore the specific accusations Kathy leveled against Chantal, some of which have been affirmed by other friends, such as Shannon following her falling out with Chantal in August 2021, with some claims affirmed even by Chantal herself. I may explore that in a future video, following a long break from Chantal lore. Before I say goodbye though, I'd like to share a quality moment from my visit to Orange Julep on Canadian Celebrity Day. To be among such luminaries was a truly gratifying experience, even if Mrs. Mac stole my bambino. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to receive notifications, please ring the bell.
And now I'm just like, hi, like happier.
Twice if need be. And remember,